All right, let's talk Sunday Night Football. Steelers Jets. Russell Wilson struggling early, but I've said all season I think he should be their starter. A lot of people disagreed, but Mike Tomlin really proved himself. This is the thing. I think it's funny. We always everyone's so quick to criticize people, especially Mike Tomlin. 17 years in the league. He's been their head coach. He's won a Super Bowl. He's been to the playoffs. Never had a losing record. And the media was very quick to say, oh, he made the wrong choice to start Russ. Sure. 37 points, first time in almost 3 years they've scored 37 points. 3 total touchdowns from Russ. The last time the Steelers had a quarterback that scored 3 total touchdowns for them, actually, it was Mitchell Trubisky. But we all know how that turned out. Russell Wilson, 109 passer rating, highest this season. Fields' highest was 104. And Russell Wilson looked good after the first quarter. He struggled early, and he settled in, and he was throwing a deep ball. All of a sudden, George Pickens looks like one of the best receivers in the league. With when it was Pickett and Fields and Trubisky and Mason Rudolph throwing the ball to George Pickens, he was a good receiver. When it was Russell Wilson throwing him the ball, all of a sudden he's a great receiver. I was like, whoa, that's a different George Pickens. That's a different player. He looks a lot better, a lot more comfortable. He's throwing deep balls. It was everything the Jets wanted Aaron Rodgers to be, is what Russell Wilson did to the Steelers. He played efficiently. He didn't make mistakes. He took what he needed to take. He didn't take a bunch of sacks like he did in Seattle. And Pittsburgh doesn't have a great O-line. But Russ he did what he had to do. And when the moment came in the late in the game, in the third and fourth quarter, when they needed him to put together some longer drives, he did. Right? The defense kind of bailed him out early with a couple of interceptions. And Beanie Bishop, obviously, a huge playmaker, Beanie Bishop, a couple of interceptions off of Aaron Rodgers. The defense did what they needed to do, and Russ did what he needed to do. And I think that was the vision with Rodgers and the Jets was, look, if Aaron can be 80% of what he used to be, and the defense can be great, like it has been for the past couple seasons, the Jets can be a good team. Problem is, the defense is good, not great, and Rodgers is maybe about 50% of what he used to be, not even close to 80%. Russell Wilson, that's a good deep ball right there. That's a great pass. And that was the first time he kind of woke up. They had to get him going. They woke him up with that deep ball, and it worked. You see Davante Adams, he's like, really? Wait a second. Here's this play. Look at this. This is prime Russell Wilson type of play. A couple years ago, he's probably going to take a sack there. He's extending play. He's doing what he did. He extended plays, but instead of taking sacks, he threw the ball away, which was good. It was smart quarterbacking. He managed the offense well. He had a strong cadence. It looked good. And it looks like Russell Wilson he's about 80% of where he used to be. That was about 80% of Seattle Russell Wilson right there. Better than it looked in Denver for sure. And if that's how it looked in game 1 against a good Steelers defense, if that's how it looked in game 1, I can't even imagine what it's going to look like in game 3 or 4. And Washington will be a tough one, but they have a bad defense. They're beatable. And the Steelers love to beat up on bad quarterbacks. They're going to beat Washington in a couple weeks after their bye. They're going to beat the Browns a couple times. They're going to beat the Bengals probably at least once. I mean, they're going to win 4 or 5 more games here. So Tomlin, again, is going to have a winning record again. And everyone doubted him. And I've never doubted it. I've picked the Steelers to win 9 to 11 games every single season I've been podcasting. 5 years. All 5 of those years, I've been considered too high on Pittsburgh. Every year, it's the same thing. This is going to be the year that they fall apart. This is going to be the year that they finally have a losing record. And it's like, why this year? What changed? They still have a great defense. They have the same offensive playmakers, and they upgraded quarterback. Whether or not you loved Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, you had to admit that Russ and Fields were a better combo than Rudolph, Pickett, and Trubisky last season. Remember, I mean, they were winning games last season with Mitchell Trubisky. They were winning games with they went to the playoffs with Mason Rudolph. If they could win 10 games last year with Pickett, Trubisky, and Rudolph, of course they can win 10 with Fields and Wilson. And everybody acted like I was crazy for saying they're going to be a winning team. How many people picked them to finish last in that division? There was never a scenario where that was going to happen. You trust the media, or do you trust the guy who's never had a losing season 17 years as an NFL head coach? I'm going to trust that guy. I'm going to trust Mike Tomlin. I think he knows what he's doing. And I said I trusted him on the quarterback, and it looks like he was right. Now, is it going to be perfect? I don't think so. Russ will have his bad games. Watch Russell Wilson on Monday night against the Giants. He's probably going to struggle because the Giants have a good defense on the road, and Russell Wilson tends to struggle against the Giants. I know this. I've watched him play in Seattle. He's been upset before by the Giants. Colt McCoy beat him a couple years ago with the Giants. So I don't know if they'll lose that game, but watch Wilson. He might struggle against the Giants. But I still think that this is the right move long term. This gives them a better chance at beating Baltimore. This gives them a better chance of winning the division, and it gives them a better chance ultimately getting to the Super Bowl. And that's what they need to get to. So I'm all in on this move. The Jets side of things, man, Rodgers he looks washed. And for Aaron Rodgers, this is going to have to be his last season. I think that's where the point that we're at right now with him. Because I don't see any way he can play again next year as far as his public perception. When you think about where Aaron Rodgers is at right now. Look at this, Wilson. That's a prime Russell Wilson type of play. That was vintage. And we saw a lot of that. But with Rodgers, if he retires after this year, everyone's going to forget about it. He can chalk it up to the Achilles. He can say, look, I was 41. I probably shouldn't have even played that year. I was coming off of an Achilles at age 40. And it was a new environment, and I was hurt, banged up. And hey, I gave it a shot, but clearly I needed to retire. He can chalk it up to the injury. No one's going to remember this in a couple years. Remember Matt Ryan went to the Colts, got benched in his last season. Remember that? Do you? I don't. Not really. I vaguely, did that happen? I guess it did. But no one's going to remember Matt Ryan for that 1 year with the Colts when he went 4-7 and got benched, and then got unbenched, and then retired. Or got hurt, benched, unbenched, benched again, hurt, retired. All in one season. No one's going to remember that. Whether or not he goes to the Hall of Fame, I don't think he will. But if he does, no one's going to remember that. And if he doesn't, no one's going to... That's not the reason that's not the reason Matt Ryan will or won't be a Hall of Famer. You know what I mean? And in 5 years, no one's going to remember that even happened. Because he only spent 1 year there, and it didn't go well, but it was the last year of his career. He was hurt, he was banged up. So Rodgers, if he retires after this season, you can chalk it up to the Achilles, chalk it up to being 41, chalk it up to the new environment. Nobody's going to remember this. But if he plays longer and he keeps playing poorly and he keeps doing this thing where he blames his receivers and he blames his coaches and he creates drama, it'll start to hurt his legacy. Now, it's not going to get him out of the Hall of Fame, but it starts to hurt his legacy overall. So I think he has to retire after this year. I think he knows that, just for his image. Here's a missed field goal, a blocked field goal. Look at that. Steelers. Look, the Steelers look good. I think they could. I hate to say this. It's kind of true though. Their ceiling is the same ceiling as Baltimore and Houston and Buffalo. They could definitely lose the AFC Championship game to the Chiefs, right? That's kind of where we're at. The Jets would need, honestly, a miracle. It's not too late for them. They could still turn it around. They have a lot of winnable games coming up, but man, I mean, they did just sign Hassan Riddick. So he's finally coming back. They need him, and they need him to be good. They need him to be a game changer. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, good game for the Steelers, ugly one for the Jets.